story outline, they mocked her uniform. Now they wear its story structure. Introduction: human cadet arrives at Alien Academy, faces mockery the mockery. Aliens ridicule human military traditions and appearance proving ground. 3 years of training. Human shows competence the crisis. Unknown enemy threatens galaxy. Leadership fails human leadership. Protagonist steps up with innovative strategy. The transformation. Others begin copying human methods. Victory and recognition. Enemy defeated. Aliens adopt human uniform. Conclusion: respect earned through actions, not appearance. They mocked her uniform. Now they wear it. The arrival: Lieutenant Sarah Chun stepped through the airlock of the Nexus station, her black combat boots clicking against the crystalline floor. The Galactic Defense Institute stretched before her like a glittering cathedral of metal and light. She was the first human ever selected for the Advanced Tactical Command Program, and every alien eye in the reception hall turned to study her. Her olive-green military fatigues stood out like a muddy smear against the sleek, form-fitting uniforms of her fellow cadets. The Zephyrian delegates wore flowing robes that shifted color with their emotions. The crystalline helix representatives had suits that seemed carved from living gemstones. Even the normally practical Corvin officers sported armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. Sarah's uniform was simple by comparison. Standard Earth military issue with reinforced shoulders, multiple pockets, and fabric designed for durability rather than beauty. Her name tape read Chun in bold letters, and her rank insignia caught the station's artificial sunlight. The mockery begins. Look at the primitive, hissed a tall Zephyrian named Vextar, his robes shifting to an amused purple. Did she raid a historical museum? A crystalline officer called Shardine chimed in with sounds like breaking glass. Those colors are so organic. How barbaric. The Corvin representative, Thrackmore, examined Sarah with 6 insectoid eyes. Earth military doctrine is centuries behind galactic standards. Their weapons are crude, their tactics outdated. This one will not last a single rotation. Sarah heard every word. She had expected this. Earth's military was young compared to civilizations that had been waging war across the stars for millennia. But she had not come here to make friends. She had come to learn. The training years, 2 years passed in the advanced program. Sarah absorbed every lesson, every simulation, every tactical doctrine the galaxy's finest military minds could teach. She studied Zephyrian aerial combat, crystalline siege warfare, and Corvin swarm tactics. She learned to think in 3 dimensions, to coordinate across light years, and to command fleets of ships she had never seen. Her instructors were impressed by her dedication, but her fellow cadets remained skeptical. During combat simulations, they would snicker when she chose conventional human strategies over their exotic techniques. When she insisted on redundant communication systems, they called her paranoid. When she emphasized supply lines and logistics, they called her boring. But Sarah noticed something they did not. In every exercise that went wrong, in every simulation that spiraled into chaos, she was the one who brought order, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through methodical planning and stubborn refusal to give up. The dark storm, the crisis, came without warning. A force emerged from the galactic rim that the Defense Institute designated as the Void Swarm. They consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space where planets once orbited. They used no recognizable technology, followed no predictable patterns, and ignored all attempts at communication. Within months, 12 systems had vanished. The Galactic Defense Council convened emergency sessions, but their debates led nowhere. The Zephyrians wanted to use their weather control technology to create stellar storms. The Crystallines proposed building massive shield generators around threatened worlds. The Corvins suggested evacuating everything and letting the enemy overextend. Every strategy failed. The Void Swarm adapted to each new tactic faster than the defenders could implement them. Panic spread through the galaxy as system after system went dark. The human solution Sarah stood in the war room, now wearing the insignia of a newly promoted commander. Around her, the galaxy's greatest military minds argued in circles. She had been quiet for days, studying the enemy's patterns, reviewing every engagement. I have a proposal, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. The room fell silent. Vextar, now an admiral, looked at her with skeptical eyes. What could a human possibly? They're not adapting to our tactics, Sarah interrupted. They're predicting them. Every strategy we've used follows classical galactic doctrine. They've been watching us for centuries, learning our patterns. She activated the holographic display, showing the enemy's movement patterns. But they don't know human warfare. Our tactics aren't in their database because we've never fought on this scale before. Chardine's crystalline form resonated with doubt. Human tactics are primitive. How can they succeed where our advanced strategies have failed? Because they're unpredictable, Sarah replied. We're going to use misdirection, feints, and psychological warfare. We're going to make them think we're retreating when we're advancing. We're going to hit them where they don't expect it with methods they've never seen. The transformation Sarah's plan was radical. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, she scattered the fleet across multiple systems, making it appear that the defense was collapsing. She used human concepts like strategic retreat and tactical flexibility that had no equivalent in galactic military doctrine. When the Void Swarm moved to consume what appeared to be fleeing ships, they walked into carefully prepared traps. Sarah had positioned her forces using Earth's ancient military principles. Know your enemy, choose your battlefield, and strike where they are weakest. The first victory was small, but it was a victory. For the first time since the crisis began, a Void Swarm fleet had been turned back. Other commanders began studying Sarah's methods, trying to understand her approach. That Vextar was the first to request human tactical manuals. These concepts of guerrilla warfare and asymmetric combat, he said, his robes shifting to a respectful green. They are effective. Within weeks, officers throughout the fleet were adopting human strategies. They began wearing simplified uniforms that prioritized function over form. They studied Earth's military history, learning from conflicts that had shaped humanity's approach to warfare. The new standard, the war against the Void Swarm, lasted 18 months. Sarah's tactics, refined and adapted by the best military minds in the galaxy, slowly pushed the enemy back. The key was unpredictability, using human intuition and adaptability to counter an enemy that had learned to predict galactic warfare. In the final battle, Sarah commanded a fleet that looked nothing like the force that had first faced the Void Swarm. Officers wore practical uniforms inspired by human design. They used communication protocols based on Earth's military structure. They fought with a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology that no enemy database could have anticipated. The recognition the victory celebration was held on Nexus Station, where Sarah's journey had begun. As she stood at the podium, she looked out at an audience that had changed dramatically. Zephyrian officers wore simplified uniforms in practical colors. Crystalline commanders had adopted human rank insignia. Even the proud Corvins had modified their armor to include human-style equipment pouches. That Vextar stepped forward, his robes now a deep, respectful blue. Commander Chun, he said, we mocked your uniform because we thought it represented primitive thinking. We now understand that it represents something far more valuable, the ability to adapt, to endure, and to find solutions where others see only problems. The entire assembly stood and saluted in human style, a gesture that had become the new standard across the galactic fleet. The Legacy Sarah looked down at her own uniform, still the same olive green fatigues she had worn on her first day. It had never been about the uniform itself. It had been about what it represented: human determination, practicality, and the refusal to accept defeat. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most advanced strategy is the one nobody expects. Sometimes the most sophisticated technology is the one that works when everything else fails. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is the willingness to think differently when the stakes are highest. As she left the podium, Sarah smiled. They had mocked her uniform, but now they wore it with pride. Not because it was beautiful, but because it worked. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all.